Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Got a bit of a. Is that just me, or is anyone else hearing that?
Hearing what?
Oh, I got the intro. Then I don't know what's going on here. I'm getting like a really weird delay.
All right.
I'm gonna have to take my headphones a second. But yeah, sorry, that was really bizarre. I was hearing everything repeated to me. I couldn't focus on that. Sorry about that intro. Welcome back to the tactical preview. Mine's fully gone now. I've lost my.
It has, hasn't it? It's all over. Take a deep breath.
Right. Welcome back to the tactical preview. Stu, Abdul, as ever, pleasure to be joined by you. Listen, we'll talk about yesterday's result, not result, the performance, because obviously there was a lot of talk yesterday. Obviously, me and Stu were on the show yesterday. We were talking about the result. You know, there's a lot of negativity about the performance, but you know, it's something that we want to address, exactly why we played like that, what needs to change, etc. So, Stu, you know, we gave it a pretty baseline look yesterday at what the problems were. But if you were to dig a little bit deeper, where did the issues start from, if you can call them issues?
Yeah, look, for me, it was balance. And I was quite vocal last night, actually. And I don't know if you saw the show, Abdul, but I was pretty vocal with regards to, look, sometimes you just got to take a win. You've got to dumb a performance down and take a win. And I was very much on that side of the coin last night. I've had a lot of time to think about it. I think I was on the minority. A lot of fans were up in arms about the way that we played. And I did think we were completely out of balance. I've said before on the show that it's a very difficult balance to make when you've got Pogba and Bruno in the same side and Fred, because Fred is a more natural 8 rather than the holding 6. And as Waz pointed out last night, there was at least 30 to 40 yards. And Abdul, me and you have spoken about this on, I think we've lost count how many times we've spoken about the need for either Pogba or Bruno to drop 15 to 20 yards, you know, to help out in the middle and receive the ball. And that's our biggest problem, really, was that midfield 3, if that's what you want to call it. Look, people can have a go at the Lindelof decision. Did I think it was bizarre? Probably. Look, I know, and I've seen him play for Sweden at right back before. He is a right back. But I just feel that at a game of that magnitude, and I know why he did it for the ability to switch to a back 3 at any given time, just like that. You can go from a back 4 to a back 3 if he wanted to. I thought Lindelof was always going to defend relatively well because of his positional play. And that block he got in the first 6 or 7 minutes was really, but by virtue of him tucking in, as what I like a fullback to do, not tuck in so much, but tuck in almost parallel with the 18-yard box, so that, you know, they can dive in or they can dive out. So I just think for me that our balance was wrong. I think he noticed that obviously with the substitutions, and I thought the addition of Wan-Bissaka gave us that extra balance. The removal of Pogba then opened up Bruno a bit more. Look, in terms of overall play, I think if you to look at individuals, there were some poor performances across the pitch, but that happens in an away game. There was 1 or 2 fans on last night's show that were suggesting that our players were overawed walking into the what's it called? The Wanda Metropolitano or whatever it is. But for me, when I was playing, I loved an away game. I love to go in and stick 2 fingers up to the opposition fans. I used to thrive on that. So I'd be very, very disappointed if our players thrive from it. The one thing I will say, and I've got to choose my words carefully here. I really have. Everybody's got a right to an opinion, and everyone's opinion is correct because that's how they view football. Abdel, and you know, James, I view football for the way that I play it. You know how I view it. It's the way that I see it when I'm on that pitch. But we don't seem to ever be able to concede that on occasions the opposition may have actually got it right, that the opposition are there to stop us playing. The opposition are there to kill our spaces. They're designed there to put individuals off. And I think that on occasions, Atletico, throughout the years under Simeone, he's been there something like 10 years now, they've been the masters of disruption. That's what they do. I was a player, I started out as a central midfielder, a master of disruption. That was my only function in the team, was to start disrupting the play. And when I moved back, into centre midfield, I had a much better understanding of that position by virtue of playing, 20 yards further forward. And I just felt last night that although the fans were right, we didn't play particularly well. Sometimes you just got to look at the opposition and say, they stifled us. And I think, 1-1 is a great result for us. I'm still happy. I'm not upset by it. I think we're in a stronger position for the return leg. We've got a couple of tough games in between. I know Abdel's done some deep study into the game, so I'll be interested to see what Abdel thought about last night's game. But for me, I just wanted to point out those fundamentals. Really, balance was our key issue for me.
Yeah, it's completely fair enough. I can't disagree with you at all. Abdul, I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on the game. Obviously, we've got a few images to bring up as well, if you want those up now. But yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
did I hear an
I
echo
don't know.
then?
Are they up now? I don't know.
Here we go. Yeah,
Okay, now they're up. Okay, so basically what I wanted to share was how and why we were bad. And of course, part of it was how Atletico played. And a little part of it also is the problems we have in the squad. So if you open the first image here is just how we were building up. So with Fred deeper in midfield and the fullbacks are spread a bit wider, and the center backs, but Atleti knew this is how we were going to build up. So what they were waiting for is they were waiting for the center back to have the ball and look like he's aiming to pass to the fullback, and then they initiated their press trigger. So if you go to the second image, James, just like slightly down. So this is how we looked like when we're pressed. So every man is on a man with a man-to-man, a very aggressive press. But where they were weak was the opposite side. Now the problem here becomes, this is not something that's very innovative or anything. It's just like a lot of other teams press that way. The problem here is we were not quick to switch the ball to the other side. We were very, very slow. So you see the zone here where I said superiority zone, right? This is where Atletico were weak because they're aiming all their press to one side to cut off all our passing lanes. So that, for example, this is Shaw on the ball, right? So Shaw has no option. One player has to drop, which is in this case Sancho, or Fernandez has to move across so that they can provide him an option, but they're being marked. So even when they receive the ball, they receive the ball under pressure, right? So the best option for Shaw here, either to hoof it to the other side, which apply like a lateral switch, or go back to Maguire, because Correa wasn't exactly on Maguire. He is actually trying to make us go back. But the Atletico is trying to make us either go back or just give bad passes. And this is basically what was happening. Now, if you let's say that Shaw is good on the ball and Maguire is good on the ball, right? Now, the other options here are Fred, you pass into midfield, Fred opening, himself to Shaw so he can receive a ball, which we all know that Fred is erratic on the ball. So when he received in those tight situations, his first touch was good. And you've seen in the first couple of minutes of the game where Fred lost the ball, but he got lucky and got the fouls given to him, not against him, because he lost the ball and he actually kind of committed the foul, but he got them instead of Atletico getting them. And he was dispossessed in deeper situation. And this is fundamentally an issue with United because they don't have the technical players in deep areas. They have only one side where they have technical players who are good under pressure, and the other side is not. So if you scroll down a little bit more further, okay. So this is how when United attempted to switch the ball back to the other side quickly, right? Now, the interesting thing here is that Atletico didn't press in the same way, right? So their midfield didn't shift across, and Llorente, like in the other side, Llorente pressed the fullback. This side, it wasn't the midfielder, the wide midfielder that pressed Lindelof. It was Lido, because the difference here is the wide center backs. One of them was naturally a fullback, and the other wasn't. So their technique switched. So instead of you having the wide midfielder pressing the fullback, again, like I said, their actual fullback pressed Lindelof, and just the midfielders covered all the options and the center back from the other side. So if you see here in the image, you'll see that Herrera just maintained his position with Pogba, make sure that he has no options. I don't know how to pronounce his name. That guy.
Yeah.
He remained on Fernandes.
Yeah.
And Correa remained on Fred, and then Lodi approached Lindelof as soon as the ball was going to him. He pressed him really high, and then Mandavas and the backline switched across. Now and because Mandava here, he's actually a fullback, but he was playing wide center back. So he is comfortable coming across and being in the wide area, and also he's comfortable dealing with wingers in one-on-one situations. So if the opposite happens from the other side, Savic is not good in the wide areas, and he can't handle Sancho. So this was their tactic in pressing United. Now the problem becomes why it was easier for them. One, because we were slow, switching from side to side. Two, because not only that, we weren't quick enough to provide options. And this is something that United have been struggling with for a while. So, for example, if Pogba did receive the ball, you'll see all of them swarming him. You'll see all Correa, Herrera, and whatever his name, all counter pressing.
We'll call him K.
Con. I'll tell him Con. Yeah, they all counter press him very quickly, to take the ball off Pogba. But in that same instant, no one is actually trying to help Pogba, so Pogba ends up losing it. Same thing happened with Fernandes on the opposite side. Whenever he receives the ball from Shaw in a difficult situation, all of them will face Fernandes, swarm him quickly, and Fernandes will lose the ball.
So
now, yeah, go ahead.
I agree with you. That all I was going to say was when you look at this particular graphic, one of the main issues is the distance between Fred, Pogba, and Fernandes, and then the distance between Maguire and Varane. Now, on this particular phase of play, I was watching this as well. I'm glad you picked this up because I felt Varane, and this is going to, people are going to have a pop at me now. I felt Varane was 5 yards too high. You should always obviously be quite square with him. But if Varane was 5 yards below, Felix would have had to move out. It would have given a lot more space to Lindelof, a lot more space to Fred, a lot more space to Maguire. And I talk about this, as you know, Abdel, a hell of a lot, don't I? I talk about looking at around when you receive the ball or when you don't have the ball. Look at where you are. Look at the position of the players. Where can I find that extra 3 yards or 4 yards? Because that's all it takes, isn't it, Abdel? 2, 3, 4 yards. That's all it takes. And I thought at that particular time that was our biggest problem. And then it's people think I'm hating on Varane. I'm not. It's just it's this particular shows what I'm talking about.
Actually, what happens is natural because.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. You bring up a very good point because both Varane and Maguire get criticized for this point. And that point is that they move up, but they have to move up because nobody else is providing an option. And you've seen it with Lindelof, how it was successful, but Lindelof just pushed it further by going all the way to the final third by playing that 1-2 last game in Leeds. And because Leeds are easier to deal with, Leeds afford to give you the space for you to run into. And this is why someone like Scott McTominay has better games against Leeds, with exception to everybody else. So with Atletico, though, it's very difficult because they always remain in their compact block. So even if you try to move up further so that you can get closer to your midfield, because they're not providing you an option, Varane still becomes a little bit exposed. And the opposite happens with Maguire if he does the same thing,
Yeah.
But Varane isn't as good on the ball as Maguire. So he had a couple of stray passes and dispossessions yesterday. So the problem with what was happening is that not only because we were spread out wide to build up, which is not a problem. The problem was the movement within the midfield when we were spread out. So no one else tries to offer themselves or help them out,
Agreed. Yeah,
So
absolutely agree.
yeah. And another thing that was happening was I get why Lindelof was picked at right back, over both our fullbacks like Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, because they knew, like Rangnick knew, that they were gonna try to separate our fullback with either Correa or Felix.
Yeah.
And even more Felix, because Felix is very, very good at 1v1s. He will sit you on your ass every time.
Nice play.
And Lindelof is
Good
the
goal.
type of fullback that doesn't commit. He reads the play well before committing.
Yeah.
Like he's not rash. And unfortunately, Dalot is not very good 1v1s. He will get rinsed. And Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a bit rash and a bit not very good with his positioning, So I understand why Lindelof was picked in that situation. And the problem with what happened is because the original plan was to keep Lindelof a bit deeper, like a third center back initially.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
A confusion happened between him and Fred. So Fred started dropping between center backs to progress the ball while Lindelof was deep, right? And that essentially caused a problem in that there's a huge gap in midfield, and because like Fred was doing that, now like Rangnick realized that and fixed it later by asking Fred to remain in the center.
Yeah.
And the idea behind Fred dropping in between center back is not bad, because you need to have a superiority between the front two and the two center backs, and so if you can go up a little bit, like the first image, I think, yeah. So you see that two forwards line, right? If Fred drops in the space between the two center backs, then you have like a 3v2,
That's it.
and
Yeah,
that's a good thing. But the problem is, when that happens, you need your fullbacks to push wide. Now Lindelof can't offer you much when he's very high up, because he's originally a center back, and this caused a problem for United, because Lindelof and his compatriot winger or whatever, Sancho or Rashford, they weren't doing any overlaps or underlaps because they were both on the same line. Lindelof does not want to go forward further because that's not the instruction he was given, and the wingers need someone to do something to open up space for them.
Yeah, well,
right?
herein lies the issue. Herein lies the issue there. And if you look at the front three, let's just take Ronaldo out of the equation. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You've got Sancho and Rashford way too far apart from both fullbacks. Yeah. Now we're in possession at this point in time, right? Okay. Now Maguire's got options. He can slide it across to Varane. He can slide it across to Shaw, which is what he does in this point. And then Shaw has then got potentially two options. He's got Sancho, he's got Fernandes. Yeah. Now, you know as well as I do, Fernandes won't come short for that ball, but nor has Sancho come short for that ball. Sancho should have been just slightly on the halfway line, allowing Shaw to make 2 yards. That allows Fernandes to block Llorente, and then the ball into Sancho for the overlap, which is what you've been talking about, Abdel, for weeks.
Yeah. Because in the naturals, like when your deep midfielder drops between the center backs, the natural shape becomes a 3-1, almost like a 5-6 kind of thing, right? Yeah. So you need both your wide players or wingers, whatever you want to call them, to tuck in a little bit, in those half spaces, and your fullbacks to push very wide, right? And the problem is here that one of them wasn't, which is Lindelof. Right?
That's right.
Because he is not instructed to do that, because he's a center back, and that's makes sense, like it's not on Lindelof in that situation. So what happened was Rangnick told Fred to not drop so that Lindelof remained in the back three, right? And the problem with that solution, it's a solution, but the problem with it is now Fred becomes the main creator. The main deep progressor. And Fred is not very, very good at that because his technique is not very solid. It's erratic, right? Yeah. And not only that, now that Fred is the main progressor, Pogba and Fred didn't feel the need that they need to drop as earlier. They both pushed higher. And then Sancho and Rashford remained wide because Pogba and Fernandes pushed higher, right? The positives in that Sancho and Rashford have the fullbacks isolated. They can go 1v1s with them. And Pogba, Ronaldo, and Fernandes have the 3 center backs to deal with. But it goes back again to what's the point of this if the ball can't reach them? Because the main progressor is Fred, right? And then your fullbacks is still covered by the midfield block of Atletico Madrid. So when Rangnick did that, he solved the problem, but he found himself in another problem, which is that we can't progress the ball very effectively. And when that happened, Atletico decided to remain passive. And like, I think it's the last image I sent, James. It's like the last one. Yeah, this one I was just showing how like they covered all the lanes and there was like a superiority on that side.
Yeah.
Oh no, I probably didn't send it. Whatever. It's okay. Anyway, what happens was in the middle third, like just, Atletico remained deeper. They went back a little bit and just allowed United to have possession because they knew we won't be able to progress it much and do with it much.
Yeah.
And that's what kept happening. Now, someone like Ronaldo being the striker and not really the type of striker that gets involved in build-up, he saw himself very, very isolated and useless, which would happen. Like Ronaldo had like very, very low number of touches and an effect on the game yesterday. And Rashford continued his bad form, his bad decisions, so he wasn't really very effective as well. So you see where all it starts to fall apart for United, like even if your managers try to, provide solutions, there's gaps everywhere. So you're kind of like trying to lift it from every position, but it's just not happening for him.
No, see, I think you're right there. No, sorry to butt in again, and I don't mean to.
No, go ahead.
I'm talking about travelling distance now. Because we don't progress the ball, and if you look at the distance between Shaw and Sancho, Rashford and Lindelof, just look at the on this particular image. Yeah. If you can just move it up slightly, James, so that we can see Sancho's route to goal. Look at the lack of travelling distance he's got. Because as you quite rightly say, we can't progress the ball quick enough, so we have to amble our way to the halfway line, which is what we tend to do. It then cuts the travelling distance for the 2 wingers. One of the things that Ollie was good at when we did have quicker transition, it allowed our 2 wingers or our 2 wider players, Martial and Rashford it was at the time, to drop deeper, and it gave them more travelling distance so they could get up to speed, get across and cut in on the diagonal on the 18-yard box. This doesn't allow it. Because they're having to back up and back up and back up, it doesn't give them enough time to get in between or in behind the 2 fullbacks. And that's a problem with Fred. And that's also a problem with Fernandes and Pogba not dropping in to receive the ball off Fred quickly enough, as you pointed out, to then transmit the play. It's basic football. It's annoying.
Yeah.
It's
James has just sent you another image at the very, very end right now. This is something I also wanted to highlight. So this happened midway through the game, where Rangnick reverted back to the 4-2-3-1 from the 4-4-3, and he asked Pogba to go back and help Fred progress the ball. And this is where Atletico became completely passive and relied on Correa and Felix is dropping and carrying ability to cause us problem. And they were very successful at that. Now, they don't need to press our center backs anymore. They don't need to press our full backs, but they will only shift their blocks because we're slow, So when let's say the ball is with Varane right now in this image, if he goes to Lindelof, right, and then Lindelof try to progress from there, by the time we do that, they'll shift their block a bit laterally and
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sure that any passes into midfield are blocked, right? But without pressing the center back, without pressing Lindelof, really, just blocking all his passing lane. They were remaining in a passive way, and then once they win the ball in their own half, they have Felix or Correa dropping deep and then turning and carrying right away, and then playing a pass to whoever is available to them. And they're very, very good at that, and that's why they caused us a lot of problem. Like the
Mm.
issue there for Atletico is that they weren't just clinical with their chances. You know, if they were a bit more clinical yesterday, we could have found ourselves 2 to 3 nil down. Obviously, they weren't like open goal chances, but like they created good opportunities. And this is where I will give United a bit of credit, is that out of the ball, their work rate was good.
It
It's
was.
just that everything they tried to do on the ball, you know, Atletico was prepared for, and they had a lot of gaps in terms of the player profiles that they have, right? Like people who can't progress the ball from deep, people who don't know how to open themselves up for passing options, playing a center back and right back because our fullbacks are not good 1v1s. These type of gaps. Your forward can't help you in build up. You're Cristiano Ronaldo basically, because in this situation back in Ollie's time, we used to use Martial a lot to
Yeah,
help us
that's
in
right.
build up.
Yeah, that's right.
And he used to help Fernandes, so that now if Fernandes is man marked, Martial would drop really deep, and the center backs won't follow him, and then he can
Mm.
carry the ball and progress it further. And this is how we get to the final third. Now we couldn't do it that successfully yesterday because Ronaldo doesn't do that. But I will give them credit for off the ball work, because like with the wingers like Sancho, even Rashford slightly a little bit, and Fernandes and the entire midfield, they work basically their asses off to not concede that many chances. But no matter what, if you really can't do much on possession and you keep losing it due to press, you will concede opportunities. Yeah, so that's basically all the problems that we faced yesterday.
Abdul, I just wanted to ask you a question more out of personal interest than anything, but it
Yeah,
relates to the amount of stick that Maguire's getting this season.
yeah,
Do you think this United team sort of goes against his sort of way? It plays into his weaknesses, because obviously the distance between midfield and defence has to be a certain amount. It can't be too big. So that the fact that United are pushing up means that Maguire and Varane have to push up. But the fact that we're so bad at retaining the ball in the final third means it's always coming back at them. So do you think he's getting a lot of unnecessary stick because of the way that Manchester United are actually playing and the players that they have on the pitch?
yeah. There's two parts the question, to your question. One is that you're absolutely right that him at any center back that United have get faced with a lot more than any top team in terms of attacks, because we can't sustain possession. And the secondly is because we have a lot of problems in progression, your center backs are tasked to do a lot more than they should be doing. Like both Maguire and whoever partners him, they have to progress the ball from their line to the attack, because their midfield is not doing much, in terms of deep progression at least. So there is an issue with movement in front of them, and that's probably putting a lot more pressure on them than there should be. Now, add on top of that, it makes it harder to give them clear instruction on who to be the aggressive center back and who's to be the screener. So Varane, for example, when we got him, from my analysis of Varane, I thought Varane will be the screener, and Harry Maguire will be the aggressive center back, because Varane is a lot faster than Maguire. Varane is a rapid center back. He's really quick, for any normal center back. And so what makes sense is that Varane will be a bit deeper than Maguire, and Maguire, because he's better in progression, he will be the center back that pushes up if need be. Not that is his main role, Like, we rely on Maguire a lot for progression, which is not normal for a center back. You know, like City don't rely on Diaz and Stones that much for progression. Liverpool don't rely on Van Dijk and Matip that much for progression. Same for Chelsea. You know, but Chelsea play a different system, so their center backs might have a bit more progression than normal. But with Maguire and any center back we have, not forget that it's Maguire, you know, any center back we have, they're tasked to do a lot more than any normal team is asking them to do, and that's because we have a big gap in midfield that we don't have a true screener in the sense of the screener, and not only that, we are not able to progress the ball either from deep midfield because we don't have the guys that can do that. You know, we rely on Pogba or Fernandes to do it, and they do it sometimes. But the problem is, when they drop deep, who are they progressing the ball to?
Well, this is
You
it,
know?
isn't it? Yeah.
And then let's say your answer is they're progressing the ball to Ronaldo or to Rashford or to Sancho. Okay, sure, but these guys are not really, like, other than Sancho, the other two are not people who hold up the ball for you to get there and play with them, because now they're too far deep, right? There's a huge space between Ronaldo, Sancho, and Rashford and
Always.
the deep midfield. Why? Because Fernandes and Pogba drop deep to progress. Now, if Fernandes and Pogba don't drop deep to progress, then there's a huge gap between the center backs and Pogba and Fernandes, because there's no one to progress it from deep. And that's eventually the back and forth issue that United keep going in between. Like, that's why I was pulling my hair out that United didn't get a deep midfielder and decided to get Ronaldo just for goals, which doesn't make sense. How is he going to get goals if we can't even get him the ball?
But
Right?
he's not going to.
Forget the other issues that I complain about, but at least the idea of purely getting him chances, you know, there's no progressor.
You know, football's it's all about traveling distance. I talk about it a lot because it really is about traveling distance. It's the problem with our two centre halves at the minute, and the problem with centre halves role as a whole really is the traveling distance behind them, the goalkeeper, and the deep line midfielder. And I talk about it all the time, and that is the biggest issue. And I feel a bit sorry for Maguire. He's got all the.
I feel sorry for all our centre backs, to be honest.
But Maguire
all
himself,
of them.
He's got a lot of stick this year. But you know, all our centre backs have been culpable this year. You know, Maguire.
And there's one thing, by the way, that I think that people don't. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Stu. I would just want to highlight it quickly. Is that when you're pressured that much, you're always prone to making individual mistakes.
Absolutely.
Stuff that you're not usually doing. So, you know, if Maguire or Varane or whoever are always constantly under pressure, you can bet your life they'll make a mistake in the game, because they're
100%.
always constantly under pressure. Right? And then that mistake will be visible. Everyone will highlight it. Oh, we lost the game because of our center back, which is not really true.
Yeah, we don't have this calmness, you know, on the park. We don't have a player who's able to be calm, who's able to control the play. We desperately need a player that can control the play. We may have had it with Donny, we may not. You know, time will tell with that between now and the end of the season. But it's one of those. I say I'll go back to it. I wasn't overly upset with last night's performance. You know, people say it's smash and grab. It doesn't really matter. It's knockout football. You go and you win. Different story what we do. You know, Saturday afternoon at 3:00, wasn't it, against Watford?
Well, let's move on to the Watford game then. You know, I think we know you can't look at Atletico Madrid as a reflection of what we need to do against Watford, because it's two completely different oppositions. So there's no point in us going, what needs to change, what doesn't, this, that, and the other. I think in the league in particular, we've been playing very, very well. So it would be stupid to assume that this Atletico Madrid game is any indication of what will happen on Saturday. But we'll more look at sort of the dangers that we may face. Obviously, this is a team that have beat us 4-1 in the league this season. So they're obviously, you know, a bad day for us, but there's obviously goals in this team. There's mistakes in our defence. So, Stu, is there anything that jumps out to you particularly about this Watford team? Even whether it's the manager, you know, Roy Hodgson's, he knows how to stay up. He knows how to grind out points when
I
he
think
needs
that's
to.
the one. I think that's the one. I'm not really convinced that Watford is a unit. I mean, Hodgson, he played, what was it, 4-4-2 at Palace, didn't he? He played a very rigid, low block defensive system, went long ball a lot, utilised the fullbacks where possible, attacked mainly down the left. If my memory serves me rightly with his Palace days. From what I've seen of Watford, he's adopted more of a 4-3-3 style of play, but I think that's really down to the players that he's got. But of course, they can defend. All of a sudden, Watford can now defend. They're more disciplined, and they're going to come to Old Trafford. They're going to try and snatch a win. They're going to do what we did against Athletic and try and get a 1-0 win. That's what they'll do, and that's how he'll play. Because most teams that come to Old Trafford, certainly in Watford's position, if they can get anything out of it, it's a bonus for them. But 9 out of 10 times he'll just cross it off his list and he'll move forward. He's not playing us, to survive. He's not going to play us this week to survive. It's just another stepping stone for him. They're very, very. What I like about them, I like Sarr. I like the way that Sarr plays. Reminds me a bit of Saka, really. At Arsenal, you've got this youthful exuberance, but he's very, very quick. He's direct. He's got good skills. Score a goal. He's strong. He's not bad in the air, and he'll cause Shaw if Shaw plays or Tellez. He'll cause them problems. I just feel that if we can get a hold of it, I would imagine McTominay will come back in. I would say if we, it's likely to play McTominay, Fred, and Pogba, isn't it? Sorry. McTominay, Pogba, and Fernandes. I would imagine. I think that'll be your central three. If Scott plays the way that he did against Leeds and the way he has been playing, he's been a much better performer recently. Then I think if we can nullify their midfield and stop the progression, I think we should be okay on Saturday. But you don't know what you're going to get with Roy Hodgson. He's 72, 73 years old, something like that. He's been it, seen it, done it. He's seen all evolutions of football.
I thought he retired, didn't he? When he left
did,
Crystal Palace, I thought he retired.
He did. But he's managed to
surprised.
reinvent himself. He's managed to reinvent himself
It's
through
crazy,
the decades. He's managed to stay above the parapet and stay above the curve of modern day football. And you can only credit him for that. But I just don't
all
think
power to him, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't think individually they can beat us on an individual basis, but he will put a collectivity in there, which will make it very, very difficult. We will be facing the proverbial brick wall, I'm afraid, on Saturday afternoon, and it's up to our creative players to smash their way through it. And I like Hodgson. I think he's great. I like him as a person. I love him as a football coach because he's a real student. He really is a real student of the game. And I think you've got in Rangnick, you've got someone very, very similar. They study the game of football. And it's something that our fans need to consider, when playing against the opposition. When you've got a good manager who understands football, understands the basics of football, understands how to set you up. I said it with Burnley on a few occasions, Southampton. They're very, very difficult to beat these types of teams. I don't expect us to steamroller them 3 or 4-0. But I think it'd be a very interesting game. Tactically, Hodgson will just come, and I think he'll sit and he'll hold.
Fair enough. Well, Abdul, I'll come to you then. Obviously, Watford aren't going to be able to stifle the midfield in the way that Atletico Madrid maybe did. So, based on that, what's the minimum that you're looking for from this United team against Watford? Because even against teams like Watford, we have sometimes struggled for that control in games. So, as a minimum, you expect to win these games. But what are you looking for in the performance?
How we're countered on, basically. So last time around when we played them under Oli, one thing is the distances between the midfielders were too big. So Watford enjoyed themselves, cutting through us like knife through butter, and boom, boom, one goal, 2 goals, whatever. I mean, it was 1-1 until 2-1 until the very end, and then they scored 2. Yeah, but they had chances to score more, but they just didn't capitalize on that. So the first thing I would be looking at is, are we allowing them more opportunities than they should have or not, which is, I don't think they will, considering that our work rate off the ball has increased a lot, because the player decided to work. And because, like, so in this case, I think we need Elanga more than Rashford. Rashford is like up and down. Like he works off the ball, games he doesn't work off the ball, games he does, games he doesn't. Right. So I would put Elanga, put Sancho, because I know they'll work off the ball. Put Scott, and put put Pogba with him, and I'll put Fernandes. Now, if it was me, I know this is what will happen, and hopefully this will happen. This is the closest thing to Rangnick. But if it was me, I'd actually put Elanga in the middle, because Elanga's runs are very, very clever. You know, like what he does, like he's the one that's occupying the center backs right now, not Ronaldo. Ronaldo keeps wandering around, dropping deep on his own, and I don't want to keep saying it again, but like pretty much doesn't do anything in the game, right? Like, okay, he will pass it around and stuff, but like, what else do you do? So if you're not occupying the center backs, what are you doing? You know. So Elanga is the one that's actually occupying the center backs at the moment. So if it were me, I would put Elanga in the middle at the moment, put Sancho and Pogba with him, like wide on the wide areas, and I will put McTominay and Fred at the back, because Fred is very good at giving us that energy and press and cutting off the ball. And then with the fullbacks, Dalot and Shaw for progression.
Yeah,
because they will cancel out the Fred and McTominay thing, both Dalot and Shaw, having them both. And even in that case as well, so even if Dalot and Shaw pushed up way too high for width, we have both Fred, McTominay, Maguire, and Varane at the back to cover. So that's what I would do. But since we're going with what would Rangnick do, so I would put Elanga, Sancho, Ronaldo, obviously, and then Fernandes, Pogba, and Scott.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's always for me, isn't it? Pogba on the left. I don't like him there. I know a lot of people do. I don't like him there. I think it's a good way of doing it. Do you know something? I agree.
For me, just for chance creation.
Yeah, I agree with you about Elanga. I'd like to see him through the middle. Now, you know me. I've been really, really critical of a certain player not being ready for the number 9. I don't see that in Elanga. I don't think he's not too far off being a good number 9 for us, because his physical presence, his ability to head.
He's physical and all. I don't think we can really tell if he's a box player, but it's just the idea of him constantly making runs. You know what I mean?
No, I like it. There's definitely 100%. There really is.
And that's why they thought Rashford could do it, by the way, because Rashford is the type that constantly make runs, even though even if they're useless runs, he'll still continue to move them.
But Elanga's smarter. Elanga's smarter. Elanga's smarter. His goal is his touch. If you look at the way that he actually had to hop over the football to allow it to travel. That's real intelligence. That's real intelligence. I talk about it a lot. Rashford wouldn't have done that. Sancho wouldn't have done it. I doubt even
Rashford wants to receive it and then run with it himself.
I doubt even Ronaldo would have had the ingenuity to actually do that. So it was a wonderful way of being able to progress the football without touching it, and allowing him to run onto it was wonderful. And I just looked at it and I thought, wow,
I think I've said it before. Elanga is not really like elite in his touch, he's not really, really very good in like his first touch, and probably that's why he let it run through, and then run towards it instead of getting a first touch and then run with it, because he knew that probably I won't control it, 100%. So it's better to let it go through the pass, and I just run with it like that way. Because when Elanga was playing out wide and trying to drop deep to help his fullback and like try to build up with us, his touch was always failing him. That was, I think, not the Leeds game, the game before that. I forgot who he played in already.
He,
Southampton.
Yeah, Southampton. Yeah, he came off, didn't he?
Yeah,
Or
Southampton. Southampton. Yeah, his touch was failing him a lot, and also Ronaldo. So, but like majority of our forward line couldn't keep the ball, and that's why we kept losing it, and they had more possession than us and stuff like that.
What I like about Elanga in front of goal, though, is his stride. He gets his stride right at all times. So his striking distance between his standing foot and his strike on the ball is always perfect. And that was demonstrated last night.
Yeah. So if he already recognized that and did that on purpose, then I'm very impressed, because that is very, very smart.
That's one of the things why he was able to take the shot so early. I mean, you can have a go at Oblak. I thought Oblak's position.
Oh my God, I laughed because I was like, that's so De Gea.
It was really weird. But that stride, that planted foot to that stride, to be able to then strike through the ball, he's perfect. He's really good at that. So, no, I'd love to see him at number 9. I think it's a really good shout, actually. Really good shout. I'd like to see him.
Yeah.
Well, there's your headline for the show then. To wrap us up, obviously, I know Stu's got to go, so we'll wrap it up.
Elanga, number 9.
On that note, but yeah, Elanga is a striker.
Why not?
Who knows? 5 years time, he could be leading the line for us. Who knows? But
he could be. Like, as long as he keeps his attitude and hunger, I think he'll be an important part of the team. I don't know whether like an official starter or not, but he will be with the team, that's for sure.
Yeah, certainly hope so. It's been a long time since I don't know. We need another one of those players. We need someone that's going to kick on like Rashford did. But yeah, we'll end it there. Elanga is a striker. Remember that. Come back to this video in 5 years' time when he's the Premier League's top scorer. But Stu, Abdul, as ever, massive thanks for joining me.
Pleasure,
thank you.
You're just allowing me to sit here and listen to you two. I'm basically a viewer at this point, but wouldn't have it any other way. Massive thank you to everyone who tuned in as well. Got your comments in. It's always much appreciated. Adds to our conversation. If you did enjoy, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Stay tuned for coverage of the game tomorrow at this weekend. Obviously not live, but reaction, previews, everything. We've got it all. So stay tuned here. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and we'll see you next time.